Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you today from the North Central Research Station at Lahoma for the annual Wheat Field Day, which is one of the biggest days of the year for OSU Ag Research and Extension. There are lots of great topics to talk about today, including some information on the annual variety trials, which help producers make important decisions when it comes to selecting seed for next year's crop. We kick things off with SUNUP's Elizabeth Hokett and our OSU Extension West Area agronomist, Josh Bushong.
We're here now at Lahoma with our West Area agronomist, Josh Bushong. So Josh, we're here in front of some variety trials that you and Amanda have been kind of keeping an eye on throughout the growing season. Tell us a little bit about these varieties.
So the variety trials, the small grains performance trials is the technical name, but the variety trials is a great way for us on the research side to really get to know these varieties, what characteristics we're looking for. So ideally we'd like to have a variety trial, every 20 miles down the road, but that's just not feasible. So we have variety trials throughout the state. Dr. Silva's placed those critically on where we want to look at certain things. So here at Lahoma, we're more of grain system here, so we're looking at that. You got some other trials that we would look at if we're looking at like a dual purpose system, like the El Reno variety trial, as well as Walters. And then there's different areas of the state, are your conventional till, no till. So there's different placements of the variety trials. And so when we're looking at those results, we're not just looking at what's the closest variety trial to that farmer, but looking at what traits, what characteristics are we wanting to look at, and how those varieties are performing in those different scenarios. So not necessarily what variety trial is the closest, but like I said, trying to learn what we can from those varieties in those different environments.
Yeah, so what characteristics have you guys been seeing in these varieties this year?
So we've had a full slate of field days just like usual, field days and field tours across the state. We're kind of seeing the tail end here. So Lahoma, we got a lot of plots to look at here. Lahoma is one location where we have two variety trials. So one of them, we have all 40 or 50 varieties here in the standard management. And then we also have those same varieties replicated 4 times again in intensive management system. So with those varieties we can see like a 70 bushel yield goal versus a 100 bushel yield goal environment where we're putting on more fertilizer on intensive management. Looking at seeding rates, so you can't really compare one variety trial to the next, but looking at 60 pounds versus 1.2 million seeds per acre. So looking at those differences, as well as more fertilizer with the 100 bushel yield environment for intensive management, as well as 2 shots of fungicide. And so historically, a few years ago, this variety trial was just the varieties with or without that flag leaf fungicide. So that's just one scenario or one factor difference where we can really make those comparisons, but this is really 2 different systems. So if you're a low input producer, you might look at one variety trial. If you're one that's putting more inputs into your crop, more fertilizer, you might look at the other one and see what those varieties, how they're responding to that intensive management. And we've seen that in some varieties, it doesn't matter. Name and point, showdown, high cotton, we see those all over the state performing well, or planted early, planted late, dual purpose, planted early and grazed, planted late, grain only. Those 2 varieties, as well as double stop, has been great for those dual purpose systems, but also in grain only systems. So we can see those varieties, some of them perform better with those fungicide applications. They might not have the disease package, namely like the stripe rust last year, which was pretty heavy and pretty early. So we saw varieties really get critiqued on that. But this year we're seeing some other issues, and Dr. Aoun has been looking at that with the different leaf spotters and seeing what the variety responses are on those as well. But like I said, not necessarily when we're looking at the data for these, looking at the past data, we always want to see more trials out there, but keep in mind they're different systems.
Yeah, so is there any specific varieties that you're seeing are better in different areas of the state?
As we get further west, we can see drought and heat tolerance a lot better. Double stop CL Plus, our Clearfield variety, has been mainstay, been pretty consistent. It's been the #1 seeded variety last 4 years. And that's a lot of the agronomics, not necessarily the herbicide trait, but a lot of those agronomics, the drought tolerance, like I said, even heat tolerance, recovery from grazing is a big one on it. Guys can graze it pretty heavy, and it's later first hollow stem. That's another one we're looking at those characteristics. When we're hitting first hollow stem, when we're hitting maturity at grain fill, those aren't always the same. So some varieties like Gallagher, it's going to hit first hollow stem earlier in the spring. We get that data set. Well, if we really want that spring wheat pasture to graze, that might not be a variety we choose, but something like the double stop, where it's later at first hollow stem, we can get a little bit more fall pasture to graze in that scenario. So like I said, some of those like Showdown and High Cotton been pretty consistent throughout the whole region. And then some like Uncharted, I particularly like it kind of more northwest, but also planted earlier. Planted late, sometimes it doesn't quite fill in as much. But there's a lot of varieties like OK Corral, it's been doing great in most scenarios, but there's just, like I said, different scenarios where certain characteristics are going to determine what we're wanting to grow. We always like to try to spread our risk, plant more than one variety on our farms. Ideally, we use different characteristics, but also different maturities, because in the spring, we never know what we're going to throw, like this year. Coming out of March was very bleak, but then we got a lot of rain in April. So these later varieties might be able to get some more of those berries to fill out better, more so than those earlier varieties. So every year is different, but always hedging our bet, growing more than one variety on our farms is what we still like to preach.
Yeah. So where can producers find these variety trial statistics at?
So we have a county extension office in every county. If you want to go in person and talk to your county educator, they can find that resource for you and have the nice printed out booklet. You can also find them online, wheat.okstate.edu or SUNUP.
All right. Well, thanks for catching up with us, Josh.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yep.
We're talking now at Lahoma with Dr. Brett Carver, OSU's wheat breeder. And Brett, we want to start things off this year talking about Smith's Gold. It's been really a success story for Oklahoma, and you have lots of future plans in the work too.
We sure do. It's been a success story in our farmers' fields for many years now. We released it in 2017, so it has been out there for a while. We know it can do a lot of things, be grazed, be used just for grain production, used for quality, and the bakers like it. So I'm really excited about it, but what I'm really excited about now is some of the progenies we were seeing coming forward from Smith's Gold.
And you have a few of those out
Yes,
here
we do.
at Lahoma. Let's kind of start walking that way as we continue talking. And you've been working on these, the ones that have kind of come to the forefront for quite a few years now.
Yeah, so you know the breeding cycle takes about 10, 11 years conventionally. And so we've been testing these for up to 5 years. And one of them is in the OSU wheat variety trials last year and this year, and that's this one, this OK 2708 line. The parentage on this, now of course, is half of it is Smith's Gold, but the other half is a line from Romania called Miranda. And I like that. I really want to introduce diversity, genetic diversity, into the program as much as possible, because that puts diversity into our commercial fields, and that really helps us in the long run.
When we've talked before, you've said there's a lot of great qualities to this, but none of these are perfect.
Right, yeah, and the great quality about this one is it has led some of the trials that Dr. Silva has conducted last year, and I think it will lead a few this year. But what you won't see are some aspects of quality that do have my attention and if not have my concern. I really need just a little more data to feel comfortable in moving forward with this. But if I did decide we'll go on to another one, it's probably going to be because of quality.
Let's take a look at the other one in the family.
Good, yes, let's do. So this one, again, has Smith's Gold, but it has on the other side of the parentage a line from Kansas State. We use Kansas State genetics quite routinely. They use some of our germplasm as well, so that's good. We like that inter cooperation. This one, though, has the quality that's better than the 2708. I'm not sure if it can yield quite as much as 2708. And so I just need to get that balance fixed in my mind and figure out, okay, which do we all feel more comfortable with? And so that will be this year, but I feel like I have a qualified backup. But just in case that backup doesn't work, there's always another backup.
Right, and let's talk about that backup.
Okay. So this one is really one of my favorites. It just catches my eye because, and not so much now, but when the heads get bigger and they get to be that bronze color, it just really pops out. And so I've watched it very carefully. The yield and the quality, we have really good balance there. Do we have as much yield as 2708? I want to figure that out for sure. I think we do. Had a little bit of a down year in 24, but I would personally like to see this one go forward. But I have to take the personal side of it out and go with the professional decision.
Sure. And then will you know a lot more after harvest?
Oh, definitely. I will probably know at harvest. And so I'll just, confirm in my own mind, confirm with other people on the weed improvement team, which one is the better one. And there will be other opinions to be had. But I feel pretty confident we're going to make a decision on one of these three this year. And by the way, this last one, is a combination of very familiar genetics, Smith's Gold and Green Hammer. Now the diversity isn't that good as far as bringing in something new, but we may make the exception on this one.
Those are names we recognize,
yes.
Names that producers will recognize. When you're out and about at plot tours, do you get some interest in these from producers?
Well, I certainly have gotten interest from the 2708. I can't even tell you for sure if 738 is in the variety trials. It probably is, but the 708 has also been eye-popping because those heads, just like Smith's Gold, they get rather large and they're quite noticeable.
You test these for years for a lot of reasons, but part of it is so you can get through the different years of growing season and all the challenges that can happen in Oklahoma. What specifically are you getting this year that is giving you information about these three in particular?
Well, a very powerful piece of information I just haven't had before, and that's resistance to a virus disease called the wheat streak mosaic. Now our listeners and viewers out in western Oklahoma know much more about this disease. It's more prevalent there. But we're seeing this disease come downstate more than ever. And we just got news today from Kansas that they're seeing an outbreak of this disease. So wheat streak is something to be reckoned with. And I think we have some pretty good resistance in our germplasm already. This line just happens to have the best resistance of the three. And it really pops out. I mean, it has a nice green color because there's very little bit of streaking in there. And I guess I should also mention, as far as that tolerance to some of the conditions we have in the state, we often have low pH soils to deal with, and we're constantly trying to make sure we have that tolerance. And sometimes we just don't. Smith's Gold is not really tolerant to low pH, but this progeny, thanks to Green Hammer, has some of our best tolerance. I'm really proud of that.
Great. Well, good luck through harvest as you get the data in and try to fine-tune those decisions, and please keep us posted.
Sure will. Thank you.
All right. Great talking with you, Brett.
And you too, Lyndall.
Well, it's a wonderful time of year. We have 21 plot tours across the state of Oklahoma, so we're ending the trail here, or towards the end of the trail here in Lahoma this week, and then we'll be in the Panhandle next week, which will wrap up. But it's really important to have these field days to allow producers to see all the different research things that we are working on at Oklahoma State University with our variety development program. And then also gives an opportunity to scout the plots and just kind of see maybe some of the challenges that we're having. There's been certain years where we've had high infestations of leaf rust and stripe rust. It looks like we've dodged a bullet on that this year for the most part. We do have a late showing of some of these diseases and viruses, but overall the crop looks extremely healthy in the state. And so I think this is going to be a good crop this year. We are so thankful for the moisture that we've received over the last month and a half. Certainly a much different situation today than what we were looking at a month and a half ago. And so I think producers are optimistic about that moving forward. We do have some issues with wheat streak mosaic virus in northwest Oklahoma, but producers really have been rolling out just to see, kind of what we're looking at. We do have some challenges right now on the price side of things. Short term, I think, just based on where we are in the world internationally. But I think long term, we're hoping to work through those challenges and hopefully things will be better.
Good morning, everyone. This is State Climatologist Gary McManus with your Mesonet Weather Report. Well, certainly an exciting week here in Oklahoma with the day after day of severe weather. We had tornadoes, some big ones. We had hail to 5 inches in diameter, which is the size of a DVD, for those of you that remember what those are. We had 80-plus mile-per-hour winds, and we had flooding. And the crazy part is it could have been a lot worse, so we are thankful that we didn't get the more widespread severe weather, but certainly some parts of the state suffered. Now, what about the drought? Did the rainfall help? Let's take a look at that new map. Well, we're holding pat this week, so just far northwest Oklahoma, stuck with a little bit of severe drought, some moderate drought out through the panhandle. Really, once you get across the main body of the state, we're still holding steady. One of the reasons we were a little bit worried is that we're now above 2 weeks across much of the western half of the state with less than a quarter inch of rainfall any single day. So we are seeing another extended dry spell. Not a good time to do it during May when we expect a lot of rainfall. But let's take a look at what we've received in May so far. You can see with those severe weather outbreaks we've had down across south central into east central Oklahoma, lots of rain with trailing thunderstorms. But look up there in north central and northwest Oklahoma, less than an inch of rainfall, less than an inch and a half of rainfall. So, that's the worst part of the state. And then over much of western Oklahoma, over into central Oklahoma, 2 to 2.5 inches. For the first 3 weeks of May, that's below normal. And we can take a look at that departure from normal rainfall map for the first 20 days of the month. And we can see that area from southwestern up through northeastern Oklahoma, encompassing northwestern and north central and central Oklahoma, that we are below normal by about an inch to close to 3 inches in some cases. So we do need additional rainfall in May. Regardless of what comes with it, we can't go into another one of these extended dry spells. Well, the reason we're not panicking because of this dry spell is what we've had during the spring. If we take a look back from March 1st through May 20th, so encompassing basically all the spring, we have had a gargantuan amount of rainfall. Remember that wettest May on record with 8.74 inches across the state. Up there in the Panhandle, northwest Oklahoma, north central Oklahoma, not looking quite as good. We can take a look at that on the departure from normal rainfall map again for that time frame. And we see those are areas for at least March 1st through May 20th, despite those April rainfalls, that they are in deficit by about an inch or so. So those are the areas that are going to need rainfall quickly. We're going to go right back into expanding that drought. Now, if we look through the middle of next week, we see some pretty good rains, not bad for May across the eastern half or so of the state, but as it usually works out, the part of the state that needs it the worst, the western half, largely high and dry, maybe a half inch or less. So not good news if this comes to fruition. We do need rainfall across the western half of the state. So it is May. We need rainfall, and we need lots of it in some parts of the state. Let's hope we get some over the next couple of weeks and maybe cut down on the severe weather a little bit. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Hello, welcome to the Market Monitor. I'm John Michael Riley, OSU agricultural economist, and we'll start with some information from last week with regard to the World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report. Now, this report is the first one that gives us a glance at the upcoming summer crop and kind of gives us a little bit of a last-minute look at how the winter crops are doing. With regard to our wheat crop, ending stocks are expected to be at 923 million bushels. That's much higher than what the trade was expecting, and that's kind of flowing with what's been happening in the markets of late. Growing crop, growing supplies, a lot of it weather driven, some of it export driven, but for the most part, ending stocks for wheat are expected to be higher than trade was expecting. That puts some pressure on the market for the day, but for the most part, prices have been fairly steady throughout the month of May. Shifting gears to summer crops, corn ending stocks are expected to be at 1.8 billion bushels. Trade was expecting that number to be over 2 billion, so a little bit lower than market expectations. Soybeans, 295 million bushels, again another lower number. Trade was expecting that to be over 300 million bushels, so for the most part, a good day for corn and beans with regard to those ending stock numbers coming in lower than expected. So for the most part, prices were higher on the day. Still, we are looking at a much bigger crop compared to last summer. A lot of that has to do with more corn acres and higher overall yield. Yield expected at 181 bushels per acre for corn. Soybeans, 52.5 bushels per acre. So overall, a bigger corn crop, slightly smaller soybean crop, and that's still kind of continuing to play into some of the story that we've been telling throughout the spring months. But thinking about how corn and soybeans are doing prices compared to one another, we've actually been discussing how corn was trying to buy some acres. Those acres were present in that prospective plantings report from back in March. But since that time, we've started to see soybean prices gain some steam, and currently the bean to corn ratio is back around 2.3, which is what we normally see throughout most years. Looking at cash prices across the state, wheat prices somewhere between $4.50, a little bit higher in the eastern part of the state. Soybean prices in the mid to high 9s, and then corn prices somewhere around $4.20 to $4.50 depending on where you're at in the state. Now we've been discussing basis on this show quite a bit throughout the spring, and we're still seeing some negative basis. That's to be expected, but we're weaker basis for corn and beans, and we're continuing to see that weakness in the basis across most of Oklahoma. That'll do it for me. Look forward to our next visit on Market Monitor.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. This week's topic is the new maternal genetic values that the American Angus Association is getting ready to release. By the time you see this, those new EPDs will be out. What are they specifically? An attempt to constantly update and give breeders more tools to select for more economically important traits. The Angus Association will release 3 new EPDs. One of those is an EPD referred to as functional longevity, or if you look at that on your registration paper, maybe abbreviated as FL. This is a genetic value reported in number of calves. It is a predictor where a higher number indicates that a bull's daughters would have a higher number of calves by the age of 6. So what does this enable us to do as cattle breeders? Effectively select for the things that lead to problem-free, functional type cows with better feet, better udders, better fertility, that manage to conceive, give birth to, and wean off a calf every year of life. So a higher number is effectively a means to select for cows that should stay in production better because they seldom come up open. The other new EPDs are one for udder suspension and teat size. Both of these are on a scoring system that can be found at angus.org, where a higher score indicates, in the case of udder suspension, a tighter udder suspension, that we would associate with cows that stay in production longer and have fewer udder issues. The one for teat size, also a higher number, indicates more refined teats, or the type of teats that a baby calf would be able to nurse more easily whenever they're trying to get colostrum in that first meal immediately after they're born. So in each of the 3 cases, functional longevity, udder suspension, and teat size, a higher EPD is actually desirable, indicating cows or heifers or daughters of a bull that are going to become cows have more calves by the age of 6, better udder suspension that stays tighter and stays in production longer, and teat size that equates to staying in production longer, and that baby calves are more easy to get that first meal from. I hope this helps. It's always interesting when we update genetic prediction. That's it for this week. As always, thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
Women in Agriculture, here's a special event coming up just for you. Latimer County Extension is hosting its annual Agriculture Her Conference on June 13th. This event will be from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Eastern Oklahoma State College in Wilburton. This event is specifically geared towards women in ag and will cover topics such as cattle handling and trailer backing, food preservation and labeling, pecan tree grafting, and more. The cost to attend is $35. For more information, visit sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, I'm Liberty Galvin, the Extension Weed Scientist at Oklahoma State. We're here at the Lahoma Field Day. The piece that I've brought to demonstrate today is about herbicide injury symptomology. So around this time of year, there's a lot of folks that are spraying herbicides. I get a lot of calls about injury, and it's really important to understand how injury happens. So many of you can see the wind is blowing. Drift is a common issue for herbicide injury. Improperly cleaning out the tank, drift, etc. So I wanted to demonstrate today what that might look like. Now there's two major types of herbicides. There's contact herbicides and there's systemic herbicides. So contact herbicides have activity very, very quickly, especially under sunny growing conditions. So the two tubs that you see here, these were sprayed only 3 days ago and they already have rapid injury. These are contact herbicides. Now these other two here, these are systemic products. Now all of these are traded coaxium wheat varieties. Coaxium wheat is meant to be sprayed with Aggressor AX herbicide. However, there is a window of application that's very, very important to hit. If you apply Aggressor AX outside of the timing of application, you can end up with herbicide injury, which is kind of what you see here. The other thing that we're trying to demonstrate here is that a lot of times people think that because coaxium traded wheat is tolerant to quizalofop, specifically the Aggressor AX chemistry, that is in the same group 1 mode of action as clethodim. However, coaxium wheat is not traded for clethodim, it's traded for aggressor. So what we're showing you with these buckets is if you spray clethodim on coaxium wheat, you will see injury. So it's really, really important to pay attention to the timing of application, scout your fields often. The other very important thing is that sometimes herbicide injury can look like nutrient deficiency. Nutrient deficiency will often start with yellowing leaves of older parts of the plant. With herbicide injury, the newer shoots will get more yellow and chlorotic first. Similarly with viral pathogens, viruses can sometimes look like herbicide injury, but remember a lot of your rusts will often have some type of residual that rubs off on your hand. That's not what happens with our herbicides. So there's some nuances here, but we want everybody to be very clear. Timing of application is important, and the way that the injury presents itself is also very important.
That'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see us anytime on our website, follow us on social media, and also stream us anytime on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SUNUPTV. From the North Central Research Station at Lahoma, I'm Lyndall Stout, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.